Hello everyone, my name is Jeff, and today I'll be sharing my experiences through the Service Learning Project. For my project, I managed to find one surprisingly close to where I now live in Fort Myers, Florida. The organization I hooked up with was Lee County Parks and Recreation. As it turned out, I was given a chance to lend a hand at a wildlife refuge, the Lee County Manatee Park, where I was able to actually help, in a way, with the care of the animals. I'll provide a link in the description below. I did run into one issue while working on this presentation. I have the unfortunate benefit of already having career and life experiences that most of my classmates up until now haven't had, which did include a lot of leadership training. So while I didn't learn anything per se, this project reinforced many of the same values and lessons I learned about working in a team. Volunteering in general is a valuable experience because it's a self-sacrifice toward a greater good. When it's for the betterment of one's society, i.e. their neighborhood or an organization, it makes it that much better. As for possibly learning anything about leadership, it would be extremely valuable if you could shadow someone in charge. This, unfortunately, was not my case. The person I made contact with, and proceeded to work with, was constantly in the fray of doing whatever came up like everybody else, whether it was directing traffic, taking payments for parking, or just walking the park and talking to guests. Speaking of whom, that's how my day started off. Meet Nancy Kilmartin, a very skilled volunteer who runs the park with several years of experience under her belt. One of the first things she did when I arrived was explain to me why the park was where it was and the benefit it had to the animals. The park is situated across the street from a local power station and takes advantage of the water discharge for the benefit of keeping the manatees warm. The power station extracts water from the Caloosahatchee River to cool their equipment. It then gets discharged into the man-made waterways of the park before it makes its way to the Orange River. This water is not polluted in any way, making it safe for the animals. During my short time at the park, I learned that manatees can only survive if they are in water 68 degrees or warmer. By law, water used to cool the aforementioned equipment can only be released within a 13-degree temperature range from when it's taken in, and the process itself is monitored rigorously. The only time when the power plant might release water outside this regulated range is if it fell below this danger zone for manatee survival. As Nancy and I were documenting the temperatures and doing a head count of transient animals, they don't actually live here since there isn't any vegetation for them to eat, by the way, we came across an injured manatee that they had known about for some time. Nancy went straight to her phone and contacted various people on the situation, and I was told afterward that they had some options, but it didn't look good. They were either going to try to rescue it, or would have to euthanize it because it was suffering. She said they would likely attempt a rescue in the next few days when they released another manatee from rehabilitation. More on that later. The rest of the day was more of what I'd expected. Helping out with odds and ends in the office, strapping posters about not feeding or messing with the creatures along the fence, taking a shift directing traffic in the parking lot, and handing out information pamphlets about manatees to the guests. You know, that sort of thing. At the end of my shift, I was asked to go ahead and sit in on an educational lecture about manatees, where I learned about their basic biology, common issues they might have in the wild, and more about why places like this were essential. I completed my day and bid everyone a fond farewell with the promise of returning to document the manatee release a few days later. For those who I haven't had a chance to chat with, I was a photojournalist in the Navy for several years and still practice documentation and event photography. I'll provide a link to some of my work in the description below if you want to check it out. Now that I'm done with my shameless self-promotion, let's get back to what happened. This manatee had been in rehab for about a year and was being released back into the wild. I've got to say, I was happy to see just how many people were there to watch this. The kayakers were a bit annoying because they got a bit too close for the park volunteers' comfort, but as long as they didn't interfere, I suppose it was okay. Before releasing her back into the water, they documented her size and weight before attaching a GPS buoy to her tail that would remain there for about the next year or so to track her progress and make sure she's doing better. After everything was over, I went back to edit the photos I took that day and sent them off to Nancy and the park manager, Heather, whom I met on my second day. I'm told the released manatee is doing quite well, but I still haven't heard anything about the entered one. That about covers everything I did at the manatee park. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to check out the links I provided and to comment as well. Thanks again for stopping by.